Hi, it's Chris. Today I wanted to talk to you about something as from a perspective as a mom and as a teacher and as a follower of Christ. And it's about parenting and some of the things that I learned myself from mistakes that I made as a mom. Being a survivor of abuse and coming from a dysfunctional family, I very much wanted to create a good home for my kids. I wanted to create this lovely, safe, nurturing experience. And I was trained to be a teacher under the self-esteem movement. And the self-esteem movement was that praise is what brings about change. That we want everybody to feel good about themselves, and there's a lot to be said, and that is good from that point of view. And I still use many of the things that I know from that knowledge. But there's a twisting that happens with the self-esteem movement, and the fact is that you can't build self-esteem from praising children. That is not how self-esteem is occurs. Self-esteem happens when you do something that you're afraid of, that you're nervous about, that you're apprehensive of doing, and you do it afraid anyway, and you succeed. When that happens, when you have success and you basically conquer your fears, or you realize that it wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be, that is when self-esteem is built. One of the problems that I had as a mother is I was a helicopter mother and I was a perfectionist. And so I wanted my children to always be happy. I wanted my children to always be okay, and I wanted my children to be successes. And so I interfered many, many, many times in things that were not my business, advocating for my children, getting in the midst of their relational issues with each other, getting in the midst of friendship issues or conflicts with kids on the block that were being mean or weren't kind. I really didn't go the teacher route because I was a teacher, and I realized how much I hated it when parents didn't let kids take care of their own issues. But I did really interfere and try to control things for my kids. And one of the things that I want to point out to you is that nobody wants to be controlled, and that controlling somebody and trying to control another person is a sin. God does not control us. He gives us free choice. And for us to think that we could control or manipulate to bring about outcomes is not a godly practice. It communicates a couple things. One, it communicates to the person, you don't have what it takes. I don't believe in you, and if it weren't for me, you couldn't accomplish anything. And that does not instill powerful thoughts within our kids. We want our kids to believe in themselves, to be capable, to be risk takers, to be adventurous in their thinking. And when we control and we swoop in to help with homework, when we swoop in to give the answer, when we swoop in to solve their problems, we tell them, you really don't have what it takes. If it weren't for me, you really couldn't accomplish anything. And I just want to say, one of the things that I've learned over the years as a mom with my kids is to let their problems be their problems. When they bring up something, you say, you have a problem there. What are you going to do about it? That sounds concerning. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think you might be able to do to help the situation? Or a lot of times it will be, you're a smart person. You can figure that out. I think, you're smart. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about that? And as they get older, especially, I hate to say, but like my, kid call and say, my battery is dead. What do I do? The cell phone business has really brought about a weakening of our kids and their problem solving, because instead of them having to think for just a few minutes, what am I going to do? I have a problem. They immediately call their parents and say, what am I going to do about my problem? Now, just as an aside, my kids are very, very together now, but there has been, and my son, I would say, has always been, once he went to the military, But, there is a place where we try to help our kids, and our help just really is not in their best interest, or some would say our help isn't helping them. So, what do we want to do to be good parents? First of all, your child is going to learn so much to how to advocate for themselves in a classroom situation with their teacher. You want them to have problems. You want them to learn to talk to an authority and figure out an answer to their problem. I have taught at the very low achieving kids, where I was probably the most positive and wonderful thing they've had in their day. And I have also taught in the most affluent school, in a very affluent area, in an affluent community, where the moms were able to stay home mostly, and they were very involved with their kids. And I just want to talk about what are we communicating when the kids have their parent email and say, could you have my child retake their math test because they got an 89? Because I've had that. I've had parents had the expectation that many times that kids should be able to retake any quiz that they want until they get the grade they want. I've also taught at a school, and check your school out, that if you have a 50%, no one's allowed to even get scored. A teacher's not allowed to score below a 50. So if you don't turn anything in, you get a 50. So if your child's getting a C, your child's flunking in today's schools. Flunking. And you're just like, oh, they got a C, that's great. No, because everything is falsely inflated. We're not allowed to actually let children fail. And I mean, I see that in that once a child gets to where they fail, there is a place, especially in a low income area, where they feel like, why even try? I'm so far behind. I can see that there are places where we need to intervene, and we need to create some false scaffolding, or some scaffolding for success, where they feel like they're not in a hole that they can't get out of. But if you are watching this, you're probably, pretty well educated, and just let your child get the grade they earn and give them some consequences. If your child's smart and they don't do their homework, or they don't study for a quiz and they do poorly, you know what they love most? Take away it. Take away the phone. Take away the TV. I'll tell you why I would get involved with my kids, because I didn't want to make my kids unhappy by giving them consequences. I wanted my kids to like me, and to be their friendship was very important to me at that time. And I wasn't being their mama. I was being their friend. And so if I could manipulate the teacher into getting a higher grade than what they deserved or what they needed, then I wouldn't have to bring down the hammer on them, which they so deserved. And I'm not talking about taking away a phone for a day. I'm talking about taking away the phone until the next report card. And they prove that they have what it takes and that they did it. Create some problems for your kids. That is the most loving thing we can do, is allow our children to have problems and create problems for them. No, it's not the most loving thing we can do. It's the second most loving thing we can do. The first most loving thing we can do is we need to teach them that there is a God out there who loves them and will answer them when they have problems and when they pray. That is going to raise a resilient person. That is going to raise a person who has a heart, the true heart of compassion, a true heart of love, a person who has high self-esteem, because they know that they're loved by God and they see that He's for them. And so when my children really didn't need to have a spiritual relationship, for you Christian parents out there that love your kids, we want them to have godly relationships. We want them to have close relationships with God. And yet we go in and we fix all their problems to where they never have to go to God. And so the number one thing you can do is bring your child to a place where they receive spiritual instruction. Model a real spiritual relationship with them. Allow them to ask big questions. Allow them to go to God with a problem, and allow them to have problems. That's the most loving thing we can do. True love is not making everyone happy. True love is doing something for somebody's highest good. So think about that. Have a great day, and I pray that this might help. It helped me, I went through some pain. Hopefully you won't have to. Bye.